1 Samuel 18, verses 1 through 5 is where we'll start off. Verse 1. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. And Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. Verse 4. And David stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, even his sword and bow and belt. And David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, so that Saul set him over many men of war. And this was good in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. Now, you could think, what does that really have to do, right? If you see in verse 3, where was it? Or verse 1, excuse me. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of David was knit to the soul of David, right? You know, Jonathan was anywhere from about 2 to maybe 20 years older than David. David was about 18 at the time when, you know, he was a sergeant in the Jewish army, which is really weird for a kid of that age, because you really don't see an 18-year-old kid that is, you know, has a decent size of the army, right? If you're in that day and age, you usually are about 20 or 21 years old once you get into the army. It's that mandatory service thing. Some nations have it. It would take me too long to describe it. I probably would butcher it anyway, so I'm not going to do that. And you can see that even though Jonathan was the rightful heir, saying that his dad, Saul, was the king, he loved him anyway. He didn't have to love David, this nobody from, you know, rural Israel, right? His soul, it says his soul was knit. They were together as one in their friendship, right? And that's the friendship I'm going to be talking about today, is this biblical, what it truly looks like for you for real, genuine, non-fake friendships. You know, and in today's culture, these friendships, you always think like, what can the friend do for me? Or, you know, and your friend's probably thinking the same thing, right? You know, that friendship is real and that friendship is legitimate, people, I will tell you, you will not think, what can I do for that person? You will think, how can I pray for that person? How can I help that person out in their time of need? What can I do to be there for them when they text you or they call you at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? You know, I don't know if you received that phone call from any of your friends. I have a couple of times where it's, 2:33 in the morning, and they're, somewhere where you're not, and they want you to come rescue them. And now you have two options when you are in that situation. One, you can get out of bed and say, all right, I'm going to, have your friend message you where they are, and you can go pick them up and not say anything about it, right? That would be, your genuine friendship. You don't care what time it is. You don't care what day of the week it is. You don't care what you have going on tomorrow. You don't really care at all what you're doing, but you will pick that person up. You will answer that person's phone calls. You will answer that person's text as soon as they message you. And that's how Saul was with David, right? In 1 Samuel 16, a couple of verses or chapters back in verse 21, it had said Saul liked David. He loved David. If you're the king, you don't give some Joe Schmo off the street a third of your army, right? If I were to, if I was king of Israel and I brought in, I wouldn't, no offense to Caleb, I'm going to pick on you for a second. I wouldn't give Caleb Runyon or Brady or Josh Runyon or any of you a third of my army because I haven't known y'all for that long. You'll be fine. But then his heart changed, right? He despised David. He wanted to have him killed, right? David had to flee. And Jonathan, being the son of Saul, easily could have killed him because, he was thinking, that's my throne. Like, I want to get on that throne. I want to be the leader of Israel. I want to have it. I want to have my own nation. Like, let's do it, right? He knew who David really was at the end of this. And he had said, like, I know this kid for who he is. And I'm going to, I give him brotherly love. Like, I want him to be successful. And, it stinks, having that friend who that's calling you or texting you at 3 a.m., you could think, I don't want to get out of bed. I've done that. I've looked at my phone when talking to some of my friends where it's been 2:33, 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, I'm tired. Like, I got a test tomorrow. But you have to sit and you have to get up. And you want to, if that friendship is genuine and that friendship is real, you'll talk to them for however long they need to be talked to, or they need your guidance, right? And you'll check up on that friend. A day, a week, a month, 2 months, 5 months, 7 months, a year, 2 years down the road, and see if they're still struggling, if they're struggling at all, right? And you'll pray for that friend if they text you and they say, hey, I'm going through X, Y, and Z. Pray for me. I have one of those friends. I'll tell the story toward the end, where he texts me. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter where I am. I will drop everything that I am doing, and I will read that person's text message. My best friend, Sam, I will read his text wherever I am, and I will pray for him, or I will pick up the phone wherever I am. That's the light. I thought that was a little further up, but I guess not. But whenever he texts me, easily give out that role of best friend to anyone, and I will tell this story real quick. So we worked at UCYC together last summer. I walked into the house day one of camp, and my first thought when I looked at him, my best friend Sam, I was like, I'm not going to like this kid. I told him that, after summer ended. I told him, when I first met you, I told myself I was not going to like you. And he said the same thing to me. He's like, this kid, Tyler, like, man, I'm not going to like this kid. Like, he's like really annoying. He's not the first person to tell me that. Definitely he's not going to be the last one either. And thank you. I know. And, over the 3 months that we worked in Prescott, God crossed our paths together. And we're now really great friends. We talk probably 2 or 3 times a week over the phone, and we talk almost daily over text. Like, and it's not always like super serious, like, and it doesn't always have to be, right? With that genuine friendship, he'll send me like YouTube videos and memes. I'm a big meme guy, so if you have good memes after the message is over and Chance does game, please. As long as they're appropriate for church, I would love to see them. But don't get on your phones now, Brady. I did that. You're the first person I saw. So, but getting back on topic, this friendship, this relationship that David and Jonathan had was one of those genuine, real, godly friendships that you have, and it could be with, your Christian friends, right? Or your friends who are not Christian, who you are sitting and you are discipling to, or you are at least trying to disciple to every time that you hang out with them, right? We live in a fallen world where there's a lot of temptations out there, and, they may be like, hey, let's go to this party. And you may be like, I'm not going to do that. Even though all your friends are egging you on, right? Like, come on, like, don't be lame. Like, if you're fostering that relationship and they know what you believe and they give you, a difficult time for it, sometimes, like, you got to pray and you got to be like, God, like, how do I make this friendship, like, how do I adequately teach them about you? And, it may be through your actions. You may, not swear around your friends. You may not, do all that around your friends. But, like, if you're there and you're trying to plant that seed, the seed's going to land. It may not sprout up right away. If they have a bunch of questions, don't get annoyed if they have a bunch of questions about what you believe and why you believe it. Answer them, and if you don't know the answer, look it up. Say, give me 2 days, 3 days. Let me find you an answer. And I'll wrap this up. Just love on them. Love hurts. Love is not always fair. Like, I've been there. I've loved some people that I didn't have a whole lot of love, and they turned on me and they ran away from me, and that stunk for me. I didn't, I thought, I was like, man, did I waste my time? Like, but I had to tell myself, I got to lift it up to God at this point. If they run away, tell them, like, hey, like, I'll stand by their side, and, if they come back, they'll come back. But if not, it's fine. And then we'll move over to 2 Samuel. So flip your Bibles over a couple pages if you're using the ones on your seat. To 2 Samuel 1. This is kind of more of the end of the friendship. They had been friends for a long while. And then so 2 Samuel 1, verses 1 through 4. After the death of Saul, when David had returned from striking down the Amalekites, I think I pronounced that right, David remained in Ziklag for 2 days, for 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. And when he came to David, he fell onto the ground and paid homage. David said, "Where did you come from?" And he said to him, the servant, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." And David said to him, "How did it go? Tell me." And he answered, "The people fled from the battle. Also many people have fallen and are dead. Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead." Now, if you're David in this situation, right, you're thinking your best friend was killed. Like, that's got to rip your heart out. You're thinking, like, your friends will change. Like, you think, oh, like, your best friend from elementary school is going to be your best friend forever, and then when you guys go to middle school, you see that you have different paths, right? That's the best way I can really describe it. And, once your guys' paths switch, like, they were your best friend. Like, you told them everything that happened in middle school and into elementary into middle school, and your heart like hurts. You feel like your part of your heart has been ripped out. I mean, that's happened with me. I had some great friends in high school who I told almost everything to, and the day we graduated 2 years ago, it's been 2 years since I graduated high school, we lost contact. Like, and that hurt my heart, But my friend Sam told this to me after working in Prescott, and this is huge. The people who really care, this is how you can tell if your friendship is genuine. If they make an actual effort to reach out to you. And it's not just a hey every month or two, it's every day. How are you? Be real with me. Like, what are you struggling with? What are you going through? Like, and some of those friends for some of y'all may be sitting in here. Look around. You may find some of those friends that you can go to with a lot, and they'll answer 2:33, 3:34 in the morning or any time of day. They will answer. And, find someone, Jonathan was a couple of years older than David. That may be somebody who's a couple of years older than you, right? So, you're going into high school, maybe find someone who's just starting college, who's a Christian, and you can go to, and you can build that relationship, and you guys can, talk with each other, pray with each other, do whatever you need to do to, foster that relationship, and you can know that they will answer you whenever that time comes. If you're here, if they, your mentor lives here in Vegas, or, is, in a different state, or, outside of the U.S. for whatever reason, find that person that you can call and you can say, hey, David, or hey, Chance, or hey, whoever, can you pray for me? I'm going through X, Y, and Z. My parents are getting divorced. My brother, beat me up, and I'm, trying to remain strong, and I'm trying not to, beat his face in. Sorry for how I said that, but, I'm trying not to, beat him up, right? Or, whatever you're going through. Hey, I'm struggling with X sin or Y sin or whatever, right? If you can go to that person and, go and trust these people with everything you have, that'll help out. I'll bounce down to the takeaways. There was two main takeaways and the conclusion, and I'll finish it up with this quote that I had heard earlier from John Mark McMillan. Love John Mark McMillan. His version of How He Loves is the way that it should be sung always. It's sloppy wet kids. It's not unforeseen. If you guys think that it's the other way around, we cannot be friends. I will hate to say it. But listen to the John Mark McMillan version of How He Loves. That is the way that it should be sung. Please try to change my mind, because I will tell y'all will not be able to change my mind on how that song is sung. The first of the two takeaways, the Lord stood in the center of their friendship and enabled David and Jonathan to love one another as they loved themselves. Like I said earlier, this friendship, the godly, friendships that you guys will make throughout the next 5 or 10, 15 years, you're not thinking, what can this person do for me, right? It's, what can I do for this person? And I gave you all a bunch of different options, and those options, those type of friendships aren't easy. You have to put yourself, pretty low to say, what can I do for this person? Instead of, what can this person do for me? Man, that was a difficult thing I even struggled with that. With my best friend Sam, it's putting him above myself. Because I think I should be above him, because sometimes I think I'm way too important. It's real. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I think I'm too big for my pants sometimes. And, God will usually keep me, or will, knock me back into check. He'll chisel away those areas where, that are undesirable for me. And he'll come to me and he'll say, hey, sometimes I'll recognize it and I'll repent and I'll say, God, I'm getting too big for my britches here. Bring me back in. And there's some times where I keep going and he'll have me, knocked on my face. And that was solid. I got to admit that was really solid. Where I'm flat on my face, and I'm bloodied and dirty, and God will say, I've been there with you. God's love is not this hot pink, clean love like the movies, the Hallmark movies. My mom was on the Hallmark movies right now. Mama, I love you, but we got to stop watching those Hallmark movies because they're the exact same thing every single time. And I don't want to watch Hallmark movies every day. Whew. Sheesh. And, it's this dirty, love. God sent his son to die our death, and he lay in the grave for 3 days. But guess what, friends? He didn't stay dead. All the stuff that was prophesied in the New Testament or the Old Testament in this book, I don't know how many prophecies there are, but every single one of them came true. Jesus crossed every T, dotted every I. He didn't leave anything that, that was prophesied in the Old Testament not finished. And the conclusion of this whole thing, and I'll get into the John Mark McMillan quote, which is amazing. Having Christian and non-Christian friends and trying to bring each other up isn't always easy, but it's always worth it in the end. I'll go back to one of my best friends, Sam. There are days where he'll call me or he'll text me, and I'm like, I'm not in the mood to talk to you right now. I don't want to talk to you. But, I have to remind myself that he's there. We're there for each other to keep each other, hold each other accountable, right? And, man, he'll call me sometimes, and I'm like, it's like, do I let this go to voicemail? And I have to tell myself, it's like, nah, pick up the phone, talk to him. Even if it's a 30-minute, 10, 15, 20-minute conversation, even if I'm walking to class in college, I'll talk with him. I'll be like, hey, I'm heading to class. I have 10 minutes. What's up, man? And he'll tell me. I'll tell him what's going on in my life. We'll finish each phone call in prayer. Every single phone call. We have not missed one prayer at the end of every phone call. Even if it's a 3-hour phone call, he'll be like, hey, let me pray for you. What can I pray for you about moving forward? And I'll ask him the same thing. I'll be like, Sam, Hazard. He worked at UCYC, so I'm going to call him Hazard for the rest of this sermon because that was his UCYC camp name. I'll be like, Hazard, what can I pray for you about, man? And I'll intentionally, whenever I'm praying, if I'm walking to class or I'm sitting eating lunch or whatever, like lying in bed, going to bed at a not decent hour because I'm in college, and college is not always easy, especially if you're a procrastinator like me. That's a different story. And I'll be lying there, and I'll just be like, I'll just pray. I'll be like, God, I pray for X, Y, and Z for Hazard. And I know that he won't go and he won't tell everybody what I'm struggling with. And I won't do the same thing for him. He won't do the same thing. If we pray for each other, it stays between the two of us. And I'll pull up this quote from John Mark McMillan, and I'll pray us out. This is absolutely stellar. I was listening to one of his songs that he did live, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and he said saying this, and I was like, I got to find a way to fit this into my sermon. And he says, love means sometimes you got to compromise. That means you've got to lay something down of yourself for something greater. And it's not always easy, but it's the best way to live life, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta stop hitting this light. Love, this is the best part of the quote here, and this is the last thing I'm going to say before I pray us out. Love can break your bones sometimes, but broken bones can tell a story, right? If you've broken your arm, you've broken your leg, you have a story behind that. And Jesus can do that. He'll metaphorically come in and he'll, snap your left arm, break your right leg, and he'll rebuild it. And he'll use you at your, valley low to tell a story. And that story is huge. It's not always, these genuine friendships aren't going to be an instant deal. Hazard and I have been friends it'll be a year in August. It's crazy. We met in May, middle of May of last year, and our last day of camp together will be August the 7th. August the 6th, technically. But that was the last time that we worked together at camp, was August 6th. And I can promise you, since August the 5th, or August the 6th, 2018, to today, Wednesday, July 17, 2019, our friendship has grown exponentially, and I know moving forward to the next year, it'll do the exact same thing. You know, and I'll finish with this. These genuine, real, knit friendships. You know, you may think that you found the one or whatever, but once you find the one, God will make it abundantly clear that these friendships that you're supposed to have with these Christians and non-Christians will grow exponentially over time. It may take a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever. Lean into God. Have faith that he will provide for you, because, y'all, I'm 20, which is not that old. But he has provided for me in my 20 years of life, and I know that there are many more things to come. Bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father,